All right. Hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Good. Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren McWhorter. I'm with the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, and we're so happy you're here with us today for our monthly EC member lunch. Before we get started, how was lunch? So good. Shout out to Gina's Italian Cuisine. Gina, introduce yourself. Tell us more about what you're up to. You're at the farmers markets now.
So I've been in business about 3.5 years now, and this is really busy with farmers market season. And but again, Gina's Italian Cuisine, and I do catering. Obviously, I do markets, events, and now I'm kind of leaning more towards retail. So I have a new line of tomato sauce out, which I placed over there. You can check it out. It's called sweet tomato basil sauce. No sugar added, no preservatives added. It's like opening a jar of fresh tomato sauce for me. Love you all to try it. Take a look at it. You can also buy it. $10 special for the Entrepreneur Center members. And I don't have any kids, but I know kids like spaghetti. So enjoy lunch and keep on back. Thanks.
I love it. Thanks, Gina. Thanks for cooking for us. If you need seconds, don't be shy. Go for it. All right, so before we get started and hear from these awesome panelists, I have a few EC commercials and sponsors to thank for making this event possible. So first, here's a video from our community partner, Dell for Startups.
Sponsor of the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. Dell for Startups is a program from Dell Technologies that helps entrepreneurs launch, grow, and scale their startups by providing resources, tech expertise, and scalable technology solutions. Some of the key benefits include a dedicated technology advisor who is local to Nashville, discounts and promotions on select Dell products and services, and access to our vast portfolio of products. For any questions on how to access these benefits, visit dell.com/startups or contact your dedicated Dell for Startups point of contact.
Perfect. Thank you, Dell. And also, in case you missed it, today is Dell Day at the EC. So, yay, we have the Dell's Nashville team. They are here. They brought us donuts this morning. They helped make this lunch possible, and they have some awesome technology that they're showcasing in the cafe. So, Joy, tell us more.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joy Patterson. I'm a program manager on the Dell for Startups team. I have my colleague Katie Denham as well here in the back. As Lauren mentioned, today is Dell Day, so we're super excited to be here. We have some of our products to showcase as well for you all. So we have a few in the front, but then some in the back as well. So once the Lunch and Learn is over, if y'all have some time, definitely come and chat with us. Learn more about the products we have. AI is super big right now. We have a lot of AI machines through Dell, so learn more about that. And then I do see a lot of women entrepreneurs in the house, so I did just want to shout out Dell Women's Entrepreneur Network. It is a program for women entrepreneurs to scale, grow, and advise. It's a completely free to sign up, dwen.com. If you have any questions, please let us know, but I will let Lauren take it away. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dell. I think they also have an AI laptop. So, two. So very trendy. You got to check it out. And then also we have a brand new community partner. So these are our partners that support our whole member side of the EC. So would love to announce Fifth and Broad. They are also entrepreneurs, and this is their own company, and Justin is the founder. So Justin, come tell us all about Fifth and Broad.
Thanks, Lauren. So we are Fifth and Broad. We are a video production company based here in Nashville. And our number one goal is to just be the easiest video company you've ever worked with. A couple ways that we do this is, number one, we really listen well. That's number one. We guide the process from start to finish, and we always hit deadlines. We work with a lot of different clients, some of which who know exactly what they want, and they bring us in to help collaborate and execute for them, and all the way to clients who really don't know what they want at all and want us to come in as a thought partner and a resource to help guide them through the process, create the videos that will help move the needle for them. So if anyone needs, if you know that you need video content in your marketing and you need some help, Stephen right here, myself, Justin. Feel free to come and find us after. So, yeah.
Justin, thank you. And then, wait, are you expecting your fourth baby in July? So he's here at this luncheon. He's here to learn. He's here on business. And your wife is an entrepreneur as well? Double whammy. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. We're so proud to have you and Dell as community partners. I also want to do a huge shout out to our growth partners. So these are our sponsors at the highest level of sponsorship, and they are helping to make everything at the EC happen. So from our membership side of things to our accelerator programs to our co-working space, and we can't thank them enough. So thank you to Pinnacle, RJ Young, CLA, and Baker Donaldson. We also are wonderful partners with Launch Tennessee. So if you are an entrepreneur and you are looking for funding opportunities for your company, check out investtn.org, and this QR code will take you over to that. But this is statewide funding, and we want to be here and help you. If you have any questions about this, let me know. And last but not least, we have lots happening at the EC, so here's a quick snapshot of what else is happening. Today, in honor of Dell Day, we're having another event this afternoon, 3 o'clock here at the EC, happy hour. We're gonna check out more of Dell's technology, great networking. Free co-working day next Thursday. Project Healthcare, which is one of our accelerator programs, their cohort is graduating and showcasing what they've learned over the past 6 months on June 27th here at the EC. And then we'll have another EC member lunch in July, the second Thursday, July 11th. ec.co/events. All right, now it's time for us to learn how to parent the best we can while running our business. So, Andrea, if you come up and all of our panelists come up and introduce themselves, and let's give them a big round of applause.
She suggested we sit in the order of our pictures. Then that'd be easier, seeing that we all look the same. All right, I am Dr. Andrea Mata. I am a clinical child psychologist, and the reason why I wanted to start this was because I recently released a book called the #2 Parenting Book, Practical Tips for the Pooped Out Parent. And the whole premise of the book is practical parenting tips in the time it takes to poop. A mom poop, not a dad poop, because those are significantly different, right? Yeah. However, I went to an event and there's two. Is that not different, Harry?
Sorry, I said I feel seen and attacked at the same time.
Well, I went to an event and I made that joke, and these two women looked at me like I had Medusa, kind of like snakes coming out of my head, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "Women don't take as long as men?" I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "Men take like 45 minutes to like women's 5 minutes." And she was like, they were like, "No, they don't." Right. They're wrong. And she was like, "No, in our household, like I take longer." And I'm like, "You need to," and then another woman next to her was like, "Yeah, in my household too." I'm like, "You need to like train me, teach me your ways, because I don't know about you guys, like the kids find me."
Women wait till the last minute, where they're very, very sure they have to go, whereas men, I feel like, will go the second they feel anything and then sit there for...
I am immediately regretting I missed the prep call for the panel today.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, I poop with my kids in the bathroom because they never leave me alone, and I'm a single mom, so super fun.
Yeah. So I have copies of the book over there. We can chat afterwards. There's actually also coloring sheets. So I created this character. I had an illustrator created. His name's Coop the Poop. There's bookmarks. There's coloring sheets for feelings, because I'm a clinical psychologist. So that's for you guys all to take on your tables. So I would love to get started with a little bit about my journey. So as a clinical child psychologist, I'm well-versed in everything parenting. I have lots of tips, lots of ideas on how to do parenting. It's not gentle parenting, by the way. Carly and I were talking about that earlier. But then I was a professor for 9 years, and I was tenured. And I woke up and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I left a job I could never be fired from. And most people are like, what is that about? And so as I've embarked on this entrepreneuring journey, I've tried to figure out, how do you parent and be an entrepreneur at the same time? Those are tricky things. And so I would love to hear from Harry and Sunny and Carly about like your guys' journey in parenting and entrepreneuring all at the same time, and what does that look like for each of you guys?
Yeah, so I'll start. My name's Harry Allen. Super excited to be here, but in particular, talking about this topic. I'm so grateful that the EC had the foresight to talk about what it means to both parent and raise a company at the same time. So my entrepreneurial journey started for me 8 years ago. A friend of mine and I worked together in banking, and we said, our bank sold to a large regional bank. We should start a bank in Nashville. That's easy enough. So we went to do that, and at the time, my youngest, I have 3 kids who are now 12, 11, and 8, but my son was 3 months old. My wife, Freudian slip.
Not Sunny, right? Like you just motioned and we're like,
was still at home on maternity leave nursing our son, and I walk in to the bedroom and I say, I think I'm going to quit this cushy banking job and go off and start a bank, and had never done that before. But we raised $46 million in 6 weeks. The bank celebrated being open 6 years last Friday, and we are $1 billion bank in total assets, which makes Studio Bank the fastest growing bank to ever launch in Nashville's history. So you can do it. You can parent 3 kids, you can start a company, and it's all worth it. This is somewhat sentimental for me. Tomorrow is my last day in my role as co-founder and chief relationship officer of Studio Bank. I'll continue to be on the board of directors as vice chairman, but I'm joining my alma mater July 1, Belmont University, as its next CFO. So I'm also changing jobs with 3 active kids in the mix. But that's me, my story.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. My name is Sunny Bray, and I have a company called Catalyst Collective. We equip nonprofits and mission-driven organizations with capacity-building services. I started my entrepreneurial journey in 2018, but let's face it, the first couple years I wasn't really sure if this was something that I could do. I think I had to get over a lot of self-doubt and negative self-talk. And it wasn't till probably about 2 years ago that I really delved into my business. And I'm glad that I did, because we hit 6 figures within that first year. But I also, in 2020, had my first child and was pregnant during the pandemic while trying to determine what my business was going to look like during the pandemic. I'm very passionate about this topic because it is not easy, and it takes an army, it takes a community, and I think the more that we can be very transparent and honest about the challenges, I think the more comfort we might have, a more sense of community and connectedness, because this shit is hard, and there are days where I'm not sure I know what I'm doing. I'm hoping that I'm not messing up my child, but at the same time, I know that I have the privilege of being an entrepreneur, and with that comes a lot of responsibility, but it also has a lot of blessings. Harry and I were talking about this earlier. You get freedom of time. You get freedom of dollar. You know, there are things that I've gone through personally in this last year. We can get into that later, but I don't know if I would have had those luxuries if I worked for somebody else.
You're right. Okay, I'm Carly Waddell. Most people know me because I was on The Bachelor like 6,000 years ago. But when I was on The Bachelor is when social media started being a big thing. So I kind of became an entrepreneur through that. But it was really like all about my, love life. And then I got married, and then I had kids. And so I kind of made money through that for so long. And it was a beautiful thing because, again, I was working for myself, making money just talking about my family or showing a picture of my new child. But with that also comes not always the full story, but I think as a mom, and as a woman, I started kind of losing myself in trying to show everybody else that life was like really rosy when it wasn't. I went through a divorce, and in that divorce, I kind of refound myself. And before The Bachelor, I was actually singing on cruise ships and singing around the world. And so I started putting all of my money that I had pretty much made for the past couple years in social media towards my dreams. And so I started releasing music, and I started somehow I toured with Nick Carter, and then I toured with Nico Moon, and I was away from my kids for the first time and, kind of left them behind. But again, in that, kind of also found myself and found a place that money hadn't been before. But I think that being a parent and an entrepreneur is so hard because as a parent, you really love your kids more than anything else in the world, or your spouse. And focusing on a new thing, your business is your baby. For my business is me. I'm selling literally myself. So that feels also kind of mom guilt selfish in and of that. But it's also incredible because you are being creative. It is your baby. You can look at it from outside and go, oh my gosh, I did that, and especially in the world of entertainment, as a almost 40-year-old mother, I'm not supposed to be getting a tour with Nick Carter. Some 21-year-old is, so it's just crazy now in my life that I thought being my own business and living out my dream wasn't possible as a woman at this age with children. But I'm here to say that it is.
Thank you all for sharing. So something Carly just said made me think about, in what ways, I think, and I wanted this to be super practical because as the subtitle of my book mentions, I hate when things are not feasible. It grinds my gears. And so I want today to be super practical. And so one thing Carly was talking about and popped into my head was how do we incorporate our kids into our entrepreneurship in ways that are aligned with our values? So one value that my husband and I have is we don't put our kids on social media. And we've been told multiple times, your kids are super adorable and they're lovable and they're likable. You should totally do it. And we're no, that's just not something. There's reasons I'm an expert in antisocial and aggressive behavior. My clientele are not always the nicest, juvenile delinquents, and I don't want my kids posted all over the place. That's the main reason. But one way that I've incorporated my kids into my entrepreneurship without showing them is we talk about the book. And I remember the day that it came out, the kids and I went to Waffle House together, and my daughter actually sold the very first copy of the book. She's we're celebrating Mommy's book coming out today. And our waitress, Liz, was what? You have a book? And she's what's the link? And she bought a copy right then and there. And I was all right, baby girl, good job. So, and they'll be the first ones to tell you about Coop the Poop and all those things. So in what ways have you guys incorporated your children into that entrepreneurial journey?
I mean, really, I'm the complete opposite of you. My kids have just been in it. But again, when they were born, social media was so new. So now I'm kind of well, maybe I could have gone about that a few different ways. But, it's interesting. We live now in such a technological world with AI, with all these things coming out, that I do believe there's some value in that because, they understand how to use technology in ways that I still don't. My son will be able to open, an iPad and know how to get somewhere. And I'm like, I don't even, what did you just do? And he's 4, which is like good and bad. But, I've had the moms come after me for certain things, with my kids being with their faces everywhere, but it's honestly just been a part of our lifestyle, and that's what has made it easy for me. And also, there's companies that do a lot of mom ads, and if I didn't have kids and they didn't want to do it, which they have many times not wanted to do it, and I'm like, we're just not doing this ad, they're not going to do it. But it's just always been a part of kind of how we as a family have kind of shown up in this social media world. And it hasn't really, they have fun really doing it.
They love being on film. I'll see my kids and they'll sneak into my office if I have my studio, my video camera set up. They sneak in and they'll try to record a video. I'll have a bunch of selfies or videos on my phone from it. Yeah. So, but yeah, it works for you.
It does. It does not work for everyone. I totally understand all of those points as well.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Sunny?
So when I attend some nonprofit events, if it makes sense, I'll let her join, if they're kid friendly. On the social media piece, since we're on that topic, I'll incorporate her in some of the company's content. There's one picture that I'm actually very proud of that my husband took. It's very raw, but it's real. It's what a day can look like. It is me on the couch with our 2 dogs and my daughter in my lap and my laptop in front of me. And it's my husband took it, and I love it. I think it's life. But as far as incorporating into entrepreneurship and my values, there was something that I had heard on a podcast that really, really resonated with me pretty early on, and it was, we can talk all day about the values that we have in life, but does your calendar reflect those values? And that helped me kind of take a look at my calendar and think, okay, well, how many nights away am I? And I made a conscious decision very early on when she was born that, I refused to be gone. I was not going to miss bedtime more than 2 nights in a row. One night and then the next I was going to be there because that was a priority for me. I realized that they can be a lot, but they can also be a lot of joy. And this is time that we're just never going to get back.
Yeah, I would agree with that. When I had my first child, and I've served on a number of nonprofit boards, I made the decision, any board that regularly meets in the evening, I'm not going to serve on, because you do want to be present. These moments are fleeting and don't last very long, and I wanted to read the bedtime story and be the silly dad. In terms of the entrepreneurship journey and how I've involved my kids, I don't know that it was always intentional. I think kids absorb the conversations that are going on at home, even when you don't realize it. And I remember my oldest one day came up to me and she said, "So how's the capital raise going?" And I'm like, oh, now you're asking how I'm, performing as an entrepreneur. They notice a lot of things that you don't even expose them to. But in terms of, starting a bank, I have had the opportunity in that process to teach them financial literacy and have conversations about what banking is, because they were curious of what Daddy was doing all the time, that my family and my parents never had. And I remember taking them to the bank to open their account, and the receipt, pops out, and my kids have opened their first bank account at the bank that their dad started. There's no replacement for those things. So when you talk about your kids selling the book for you, they become a champion for you. And if you're parenting well, they want you to succeed as much as you want them to succeed. And that encouragement puts wind in your sail when the entrepreneurial journey has its ebbs and flows. My co-founder had older kids. He had preteens in the early stages, and so they were probably more active, and he was asking, their friends' parents to invest in the bank, and I hadn't established those types of relationships with really young kids yet. But there's opportunities to engage them in the doses that are appropriate for their ages.
I also think it's just so important to have help around you. You know, like my parents, like my kids love me, but they like love my mom just as much. So when I'm not there, they're like so happy. It's still. But I do think that that is one thing, you know, if you're okay with, like I was gone for 10 days, if you yourself are okay with that, it's easier to know your kids are in great hands with loving people that are taking just as good care of them, you know. So in my defense of not being with them that many nights, you know, they were super happy too. If you find really good help,
I have guilt with that sometimes. I actually do, and I think it's stupid. At least that's what my husband says. You know, it definitely takes a community, 100%. Like those families that I know that don't have family around them, I can't imagine what that's like, because we have my mother-in-law, and B is my daughter. We call her B. She loves to go to grandma's. Like my husband said, like, we need a grandma detox. B loves you more than us. And you know, she'll, you know, occasionally do a sleepover at grandma's. And I told my husband, I said, I feel so bad that we're just like sending her over there. And he's like, we're not sending her. She wants to go. It's good for her to spend time with grandma, and it's good for us to have time together. So I know that that's something that I experience sometime, and that I have to just get over it.
We have the same conversation. So my wife and I both are from Nashville. We've got both sets of grandparents and cousins and stuff all around, and we have never hired a babysitter in 12 years because our family is always there, and we feel guilty that we're using them for free childcare, and they're like, these are my grandkids, my nieces, my nephew. And so we have to remind ourselves, they want to spend time. If you have a village around you, be grateful and use it, and don't feel guilty for sending your kids away.
Right.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law, in fact, even said early on, because she didn't get to see her the first couple months because of the pandemic. We were very cautious. There was so much unknown. And she flat out said to me, Sonny, you need to share.
And I think that's huge, because my parents live 6 minutes away from us. They're our full-time daycare. My kids are with my in-laws right now. They thought it was awesome because we dropped them off on the way down. But I think it does take an army or a village, a community, and because I've recently done parenting groups with single moms. And one of the things that kept coming up was that they don't have an army. They don't have a village. And one thing that I kept pushing them on was like, look around the table. I'm like, you have an army, you have a village. You just need to like ask for help. And like one mom was like, well, I don't know what the knife room looks like. And I was like, what? And she like told this whole story about this knife room and how she doesn't trust people. Doesn't trust people. And I was like, you need to get over that, because you're gonna like, as a single mom, Carly can attest, like you're going to get overwhelmed and you need people. And so as we kept saying this month after month, all of a sudden we started seeing moms start exchanging phone numbers. And we're like, yes. And so I'm interested, how many of you guys out there have kind of a village or a community? And so for those of you who didn't raise your hand, it's like maybe we can discuss, like, put yourself out there, start building that village, start building that army and that community. In what ways? Well, we all have in-laws, so that's we can figure that out. What are? Would you guys have any tips for, maybe you guys have friends or something that are on the entrepreneur journey that don't have family near them, and how did they create community and village in an army?
I think each other. I really have developed some very strong relationships and friendships with other working moms, not necessarily even entrepreneurial moms, but just working moms that get the the balancing act as well as the frustration. And I mean, it's a joke almost. Like, I had a friend that sent me this reel on Instagram the other day about this mom who was just going off about, yes, my 3-year-old makes me cry sometimes, and yes, you can come over and just drop your kids off, and just like real life experience that we have dealt with. And I shared with Carly and Andrea earlier is just being very vulnerable with the hard times and realizing that, you know, everyone goes through it and that I'm not crazy. And I think that's really helped, is just like leaning on my female friendships of women who also have children and work.
I had a mom podcast for like 3 years, and we talked about this a lot, but there are like, I'm a part of one in Nashville. To be honest, I never have gone to a meetup, but there are so many different women, men organizations now that offer meetups. And lots of those also for women with kids are like, hey, we're having a play date. You can drop your kids off. There'll be so many parents here. Like, I've seen many emails like that come through. So I think there are outlets to meet people, but I do think sometimes you have to seek out a little bit of those, you know, situations. One of my friends has found a lot of people through like the lots of other single parents through the elementary school meetups, you know, for, you know, kindergarten parents. So there's lots of different outlets. I think sometimes fear holds us back a little bit, you know, going and talking to new people. I experienced that. I walked in today and I was like, oh gosh, I'm nervous. I don't know anybody. But I think sometimes, like, if you want those friends, you have to make a few little bitty steps to get there. Even though they feel really big, they're really not. Everybody else there wants friends too, you know?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. We've made a lot of connections through our kids' schools and activities that they're in. And even though we have in-laws around, raising kids today is different than when my parents were raising us. And so it is helpful to have peers and a community of friends who are in the same spot you are and having the same conversations. When do you get a cell phone for your kid and expose them to social media? All these things that our parents had no concept of.
Right.
Last question, because I want to make sure that we leave time for a Q&A, is what is like one practical tip you would give for people who are trying to figure out the whole parenting while entrepreneuring? Go ahead, Harry, you can start us off.
Yeah, so, and I knew that was going to happen because the battery light has been flashing. For me, I don't want to take all of the stress of the day home with me, where my kids are met with a stressed out dad. And so there are a couple of things that I do to make sure that I'm not completely depleted by the time I cross the threshold. One is, in Nashville, if you want to lead and serve, there are so very many nonprofits and things to join. It took me a little while to figure out what my passion is, and if I'm gonna do something outside of work, make sure it's something that I'm passionate about, because if it's a nonprofit that I'm not passionate about, I'm extremely drained after that board meeting, and then my kids don't get happy dad, they get frustrated, tired dad. The other thing is that for me, there's a stop sign that once I pass that stop sign, it's just a reminder to me to shift my thinking and be present when I get home. And so whatever thoughts I had on the commute home, that stop sign and that turn is a turn of the page. And my kids are all daddy's kids. We had 2 girls first and then my son. My wife was convinced the son would be a mama's boy, but she's not. And I love that they all flip out as soon as I get home. And I'm not tired, and I'm present when I get there.
I have a couple of tips. I think, gosh, marriage is already hard, and then it's great, but it's also it's also hard, especially when you add a baby to the mix and you're sleep deprived. And I remember my husband had said something to me before, because again, entrepreneurship, it's your baby. You're building it, you receive so much fulfillment and joy from the work that you do because you're invested. And my husband once said to me, you know, I feel like you're present with our child, but I don't feel like you're present with me. Sometimes I feel like you're thinking, your head is somewhere else, or thinking about your email, and that hurt. You know, and a friend of mine, a mentor of mine said recently, she said, you know, if your foundation, if your marriage, your partnership is solid, then everything else is good. And there were times in the past, very early on, after B was born, where and I told Harry this earlier, I became resentful because I was an entrepreneur. I got to work from home, and so I was the one that had to do all of these other things. If school got out early or she was going in late, I was the one that had to do that, and I became resentful. You know, we went to therapy, and I realized that he was not the enemy. He was my teammate. And I didn't have to do these things. These were things that I got to do. And so I think shifting my mindset, shifting that perspective, changed things incredibly. And another thing, I mean, our phones, our laptops, everything, the distractions are there. And I see it at gymnastics. I see it at swim. Parents that are on their laptops. Why are you even there if you're not going to watch your kids? Yeah. And so I made a conscious decision that when I'm with my kid, unless I'm pulling my phone out to take a picture of her because she's so cute, that I'm not going to be on my phone. That, you know, from the time I pick her up to the time I put her down, the phone is in another room, it's on the charger, it's nowhere to be seen. And I can pick it back up later. The pressure that we put on ourselves to do this or do that or respond to an email, no one else is putting on us except for ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like, I think I was watching a TV show one day, an interview with a mom, and she said, I feel like it was like a director or something, but she said, whenever I get home, no matter how tired I am, if my child looks at me and says, Mommy, will you play with me? She said, I sit down for 10 minutes and I devote all of my attention to my child for those 10 minutes, because that's what a kid is going to remember the whole day, and they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel loved. And so I've very much so, even if it's a wild day and my son says, Mom, will you play cars with me? Because it's all he wants to do. And to be honest, I don't like playing cars, and I don't like playing Barbies. I don't want to talk, Barbie. I don't want to do it. But if she wants me to sit down and play the dolls, I'm going to play the dolls. I mean, I'm going to cap it, you know, at 10, 15 minutes. But I did make a very conscious decision to do that, because I think sometimes we get through a whole day and we haven't looked our kids in the eye the way that they need to be looked at, and it doesn't have to be for a long period of time. You know, we think that it does. We think, oh, I'm not a good mom if I haven't given my kid attention all day, and I still do that, but I don't think that that's true. And then, yeah, with the phone situation, you know, there's so many times that, yes, I work on social media, but I've made the conscious decision too. And also, like, I had a YouTube channel for a long time, and it was too intrusive in my life. I didn't want to go to Disney World and film all of Disney World. I did it one time, and I was like, I'm done with this. I don't care if I'm going to make money this way. This is not for me. Because, like, the important part is to be with my kids when I can fully be present. So, yeah, I would say just make sure that, you know, the distractions aren't there as much as they probably are in this day and age.
I think my tip is that you're an entrepreneur. One of the reasons why we went towards this life is because you get to create your own schedule, and realizing that there's different seasons that you're going to experience in life. And so some are going to be busier and some are going to be less busier. And so figuring out what schedule works for you and your children. So for this summer, I decided I'm going to try to take off Wednesdays and Fridays. And then I work so that I'm completely present with my kids on Wednesdays and Fridays, and we go on adventures and we go and do fun things. And that's what do I get as much work done during the summer? No, but I just wrote a book. And so I'm going to give myself some grace, and I'm going to take off Wednesdays and Fridays because I can. And everything is going to be okay. Like the work is my job, my everything is still gonna grow and all those things, but my kids are growing too, and they need my attention. So knowing that you can make decisions depending on what's working for you, where you are at in your life. Anything else you guys want to add before we open it up? Go ahead, Harry.
I want to make sure we also highlight the gift that parenting is, especially during the startup phase. For me, they kept me, present in ways that I didn't anticipate. When you're starting a business, it's really easy to think about it nonstop, and every single conversation's high stakes, and I got to be there. When you're with a kid and they're with their toy, like nothing else matters, and they force you to be in that moment with them. And that, as an entrepreneur, has been really a gift to me in that process where, peers of mine who didn't have that kid ripping them from thinking about their business plan nonstop. It was a joy.
I agree. I'm going to piggyback off of that. Well, first off, to what Andrea said, we do entrepreneurship for freedom of time and freedom of dollar. And we have privileges that a lot don't, working in corporate America. And I don't know about you, but when I became a mother, I changed. My perspective changed, my values changed. I created more boundaries. I used the word no a lot more. I like to say I use my no's to protect my yeses. And you become a parent, and it's your responsibility to make this world a better place. And me as an entrepreneur, me as a working mom, I am setting an example for her. And I want to create a world where she feels safe and loved and knows that she has every opportunity possible to her, and that she can go on and be and accomplish anything in this world. And I have to show her that that's possible.
This is the last thing I'm gonna say about this, but this is a proud entrepreneurial mom moment for me. When I was on my last tour, there was a live stream from Canada, and I wrote a song called Two Little Angels about my children, and about my divorce, but how wonderful I would go through everything again just to have them. And it's one of their favorite songs, not that they really understand the context, but my parents had them, and they were all watching this live stream, and they were singing this song like with me while I was singing it, and I could feel that from the stage. I knew they were watching the whole thing, and I just knew how proud they were of me. And I FaceTimed them afterwards, and they're like, "Mom, you sing Two Little Angels, it was so great, blah, blah, blah." And it just made me realize, like, even though I'm away from them, what I've created and what I've done they're so proud of me, and it makes them want to be more creative. My daughter loves art. She loves singing. It also, we're inspiring the young generation to, like, go for it, to go for whatever you want. And I think that's just huge. It's a gift to yourself, but it's a gift to them as well.
Yeah, and this is the last thing, because going off of Carly, like, I work in high schools, and one of the the number one characteristic that I see in high schools of our high schoolers is apathy. They are so apathetic right now. And so to be able to show our children to go for it is huge. And so that they're not so apathetic, because boy, our youth, they're struggling right now. So we would love to open it up for Q&A.
Would you all want your kids to become entrepreneurs, and how does that impact your parenting?
think so. I actually asked her the other day. I said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "Do you?" I didn't say this because I often I often say my husband is a pharmacist, and I usually lead with he's a drug dealer, but he's a pharmacist. So I asked her, "Do you want to be a pharmacist like Daddy, or do you want to be an entrepreneur like Mommy?" And she said an entrepreneur. And I asked her, I said, "What do you think Mommy does?" She goes, "I think you wear makeup sometimes, and I think you go to parties and you play with your laptop."
Sounds like a good time. Oh, I would. I think there's something so beautiful about being a creative soul. Like this sounds so silly, but I was driving down the road the other day, and you drive by all of these businesses. They're everywhere, right? But like somebody's created that. Like that doesn't just exist. Somebody sat there and said, "I would like to make this business," and then they did it. And look, now it's in a building, and it's standing there, and it's working. And I think that I would love to see my kids be like that. My dad's an entrepreneur too. He's the biggest one of them all, I swear. He never stops. But I really think there's something so cool about a person saying, "Hey, my soul is telling me that I really need to do this." And then they do it. And yeah, sometimes it fails. I've had a lot of failed businesses. But like, sometimes it works, and regardless, you're doing it, and I think I would be so proud to see my kids grow up to just try stuff. I think that's so incredible.
Yeah. So I would be okay if my kids were also entrepreneurs. I don't know that if your question is like steering them in a direction, what I tell my kids is, what makes us uniquely different. And I know we just heard about AI, laptops and machines. Maybe computers can think, but can computers imagine? And we are creators. Every single person in this world, what makes us uniquely different from the other living things is this ability to dream, but also this urge to make that dream exist in the real world and the opportunity to do that. So whether you are creating a business or whether you work for a company, but they are facing an issue that you're curious about and a solution doesn't exist that you can bring to that company, wherever you are, make sure you're creating, dreaming, and remaining curious, because the world has plenty of problems that creativity needs to solve.
I mean, I think for me, they can be whatever they want to be. Like, one right now wants to be a CIA agent, one wants to be a ninja, one wants to be a ballerina, whatever it is. It's like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, then be an entrepreneur. Like, I don't care, just go do something and have meaning and passion behind it. Go ahead, sir.
I just had a question because coming from family business, those aren't typically thought of but what are your thoughts on that? Because obviously, it's in my dad's office, but I wasn't really working. So it's like, what are your thoughts on how to do that?
My dad, like I was saying, he's a super entrepreneur. They moved when I was having my daughter. They moved here, and they were driving through Charlotte, Tennessee, and there was an old hardware store for sale. And my dad said, "Hey, let's buy it and turn it into a popcorn shop, candy shop, like soda shop." And this idea has expanded over the years. It's called Sweet Charlotte. Now it's like a huge destination outside of Nashville. And I actually just talked to him the other day about, hey, like, my boyfriend and I are talking about like moving a little bit outside the city on the east side of town. I was like, what if I started a Sweet Charlotte out there? And so I think that doesn't also mean by working for what my dad created that I'm not being creative, because I want to create within his creation. I think it just stems down from like, you take something that's like so cool and then you just keep expanding it. Anyway, that's my thought.
I like that because like sometimes like my sister working with my mom, she's a doctor. It's like it's hard for her to be creative, but she's still to be a doctor. Your kids, that
Yeah, I was just going to add, I have been a banker to a lot of business owners who were either second generation, so they inherited the business from their family, or they have started their business with the goal of bringing their kids into it. And one in particular, I was just talking to a couple of weeks ago, and he said, you know what, I now realize that I don't want to build this for my kid unless they are also passionate about the same mission. And maybe my goal as an entrepreneur in creating this business is to be able to seed whatever their idea is. And so it was fascinating because I think the prior generation of family business owners just assumed that, you know, their kid would step in line, and then I've seen business owners be really disappointed when their child doesn't step up or doesn't want to do it, and I'm like, are they interested in it? You know, so you just got to be careful with that, and if you are building a family legacy, that can look like a number of ways, and maybe they don't operate the business, but that doesn't mean they don't benefit from it.
So my mother was an entrepreneur as well. She was an immigrant woman, traveled here from South Korea in 1972, overcame quite a bit of adversity and started her own small business in Colombia. She had an alterations shop, and I don't think she ever thought that I would take over that business because I can't sew. I think I can thread through the needle hole, but that's it. And this was actually something I wanted to talk about as like a challenge that I had over the last year. And I think if you haven't already experienced it, you will be. You will soon. Our roles will reverse. And it's just part of the entrepreneurial journey of being a parent. But there will come a time where you will need to take care of your parents too. My mom passed away 6 months ago, and I was pulled in many different directions of being a wife, a mother, a business owner, and caretaking for my mother while she was in and out of the ICU for 2 months. And that is a challenge and a struggle in and of itself that we don't talk about. But again, as an entrepreneur, you have that ability. And I told my husband recently, I said, I feel like if I worked for a company, I would have been fired by now. And he said, yeah, probably, because there were days where I could not get out of bed. And, you know, I've done a lot of things that have helped since, you know, the simple things, exercise and water and food and therapy and Lexapro. But like, so all that to say, I would have been honored to take over my mom's business had I known how to sew. Yes. Me starting my business had nothing to do with my daughter one day taking it over. It had everything to do with what I felt inside of me, there being a need and opportunity, and having the guts and the courage to do it and not wanting to live in regret and feeling like, what if? Why didn't I start this? I don't want to go to the end of my life and think I should have done this and now it's too late. And I'm hopeful that I'll sell the business before she's even old enough to take it.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Harry, Sonny, Carly, thank you guys so much for like just the openness, honesty, transparency, because I think it's real. But the other aspect that kind of builds a little bit of your point, Sonny, like the burnout. It's a reality, and I wish it could say it happened once, but it happens a couple of times. So I'd love to learn from each of you, kind of like your burnout experience and some of the things that you did to help overcome that and keep moving forward.
So this is, and I'm really interested in your responses too. This is another reason I think parenting as an entrepreneur is a gift, because the school schedule forces breaks because school is closed and you've got 3 kids that can't take care of themselves. And so that helped me be healthy with kind of taking a pause. And then I had to learn, okay, going on vacation with kids and a laptop isn't vacation. And so now I even leave the laptop behind. But yeah, it is incredibly hard when you don't have a corporate setting telling you this is how many PTO days you have, and when do you take that break before you run into the wall when you're running towards it. That's a challenge for most entrepreneurs, but I'd say the school closures, the sick days, the managing a child requires you to think about how your time is allocated extremely differently.
Burnout was something that I struggled with a lot in the beginning, especially. I think our idea, everyone has a different idea of success. And we all have different goals for our business. And those, you don't have to change the goal, but you can change the timeline of that goal. And I know that there's just small things that I do for myself to make sure that I am operating as my favorite self. If I'm all out of whack and on edge, it shows up in my kids. Like, I saw something where it was like, if the mom is happy, then the kids are happy. And I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to be worried. I don't want to be thinking about other things. I want to be present with my kid. And so there are small little things, again, very simple, but like these are things that I have to do just to operate at like baseline, and I already feel like I'm not a very patient person. And so there's things that I do that I used to wake up at 5 in the morning. I used to wake up at 4 in the morning. I can't do that now because I'm just tired. So, and so if I can get outside at some point in the day, if I can get a workout in at some point in the day, if I'm filling my body full of like hydration, not martinis like I had last night, but like water and the right food, you just feel better. And also just, again, I'm a big advocate for therapy. I mean, whatever it is that you need, we all have to have an outlet or we're on edge. My husband will even say, like, did you go work out today? I'm like, no, I didn't, I can tell. And so that's really helped. But again, getting your business to a point where you can build out your team. That was what really shifted the burnout for me. I hired team members that I trust, respect, that when I had to take time off with my mom, they were doing things behind the scenes that I didn't even know they were doing. And that's because they have trust, they have autonomy, and I had full confidence that things were still getting done even though I wasn't present. And so, getting your business to a point where you can hire the right people. And I mean, the first thing that I did was I outsourced finance. I can do it, yes, but is it a good use of my time? Am I doing things that are not within my skill set that's causing me to feel the burnout?
I mean, mine's a little skewed because I'm more, as a mommy influencer, I get burned out from being around my kids all the time because they go to their dad's 4 days a month. So they're with me all the time. So like when I go on tour or I go to write a song, those things I come back from. So even if it's writing a song for 4 hours and I just used every creative juice and I leave and go, wow, that was like I'm so smart today, Then I come home and I'm just like, it's a reset and it's like a quick reset. But like, I think that when you find something you just really love to do, sometimes that, instead of burning you out, fills you up, right? So I think that in my way, my business, when I get to do it, because I don't sing every day, but when I get to do it, it fills me up so much that I can be a more present, not burned out parent because of that fact, if that makes sense.
I think that's a great question, Chris. And so I think the best way psychologically to treat burnout is to actually prevent burnout. And so my number one tip on preventing burnout is 30 minutes a day doing something that brings you joy. And there's lots of parents that are like, I don't have 30 minutes a day to do something that brings me joy. And I tell them, like, your family can't afford for you not to, because the effects of burnout on you are a heck of a lot worse than you taking that 30 minutes a day to do something that brings you joy. Now, if you can't prevent burnout and you're in a state of burnout, well, then I talk about parentcations, and a momcation or a dadcation. And so every year I take 48 hours where I am relieved of all responsibilities. My husband takes our kids and he goes away for the weekend. He leaves Friday evening and he comes back on Sunday afternoon, and someone's like, wait, what? Like, I see that face in the back behind Ashley. Like, what is that? And I get to do whatever I want to do for 48 hours. I get to eat what I want to eat, and I don't have to share my plate. Like, mommy's plate is no longer community plate. I get to go walk and hike and bike ride, and I get to sleep and take naps, and I don't have to worry about anybody else. And my husband gets a dadcation too. His just looks different than mine. He goes with his two best friends to our place on the lake, and they drink a lot of beer and they play golf. That's his dadcation. It's just what rejuvenates you and takes that responsibility off so that you are ready and roaring to go after that vacation. Other questions?
I'm curious to hear more about like building community. 'Cause I feel like that would solve a lot of problems for me and my kids. So they don't really have much friends here. We just sort of moved here, and they have some online friends, but it's not as good. It helped them maybe get on the screen more if they had friends to play with. And like, I'm a single parent of 4 kids, and I just whenever I'm with them, I don't feel like I have time to build community, I guess. So, like, yeah, what are some other creative ways?
It's hard to make friends as an adult. We're not in a season where we're like in school and it's just easy. Now it's like forced conversation and it's awkward and we don't have a lot of time. And so like I value my friendships. So the ones that I have and the new ones that I make, I'm over the surface level bullshit. It's like deep and wide for me because that's all I have time for. I heard something recently where it talks about, as we get older, by the time our kids have reached 18, they will have spent 90% of their lives with us. And then as we age, we spend more and more time with our spouse or by ourselves. And so we really have to prioritize our relationships, our friendships. And the way that we're able to make those friendships, those relationships, are the 2 P's: prioritization and patterns in life. So the patterns are, the prioritization, obviously, prioritizing friends. I have friends that live all over the US. Patterns in life are, the parents of the kids that your kids go to school with. Gymnastics, sporting, the activities that they're in, that just talk to someone. It's gonna be awkward and forced at first, but you can build that relationship. And you think about it, it's like networking too, right? When you're networking for your business, it's the same thing. And you're not gonna connect with everybody, and that's okay. But there are going to be people where the energy is there, the vibe is there, you just know that you're going to be friends. And it might not be like a shit ton of people, but that's okay. You just need a couple.
And something that Sunny just said was like, if it doesn't already exist, create it. You're an entrepreneur. Like, just say like, hey, I'm going to get together. I'm going to be here. My kids are this age. Would anyone like to else get together? And see who shows up.
Yeah,
and then
like an email to the class. Like, you always usually have all the email addresses. I get those sometimes. Hey, does anybody want to go to get margarita? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'd like a margarita. Yeah.
I would like a margarita. Yeah, but yes, I think create it. Like, start it. And maybe only 2 people show up. But like Sunny was saying, you don't need a lot of people. We don't have time to build all of these relationships with all of these people. but we can build high quality relationships with a few people.
Yeah. No, Carly said it earlier, you have to take a couple of steps and be intentional and like search the email addresses and do that. We all need to read her book. We also need to read another book that I read recently called Build the Life You Want. And there's a chapter specifically that talks about friendships and the core need that every human has for those deep relationships. But we're so bad at it as adults, and it doesn't naturally happen. And I thought I had a lot of friends. I was telling you, I'm a 6th-generation Nashvilleian. I can't go anywhere in the city and not run into 5 people that I know. But he categorizes people into distinct categories: deal friends and real friends. And he said, make a column of each. And I realized that I had turned every single one of my relationships into a deal friend. We raised $46 million in capital to start the bank, mostly from individuals in Nashville. We've got 525 investors. Every single one of my friends wants to know how the bank is doing, and are we hitting our metrics? I didn't have anybody that just wanted to be in a useless relationship with me, and that was a real eye-opener. And your spouse can't be your only friend either. And so yes, find a friend. I'm in search of one too, so maybe, we can be friends.
Speaking of margaritas, just a shameless plug, tonight at Highwire from 6 to 8, I have a book signing, meet and greet, those kind of things. So I'd love for you guys to join if you have time. It's family friendly. They're going to have family-friendly kid things, so you can bring the kids and come, and I'll share some funny stories from the book and all those things. Any other questions?
Yeah. So I'm in the middle of starting an adventure, but I also have a son due in August. So those two timelines, obviously the stakes are a little bit higher as far as the risk goes. How do you get a non-entrepreneurial spouse to have on board with kind of being with that risk? And make it safer. You're safer.
Sorry, I have to check my phone. My kids are coming into town from their dad and getting dropped off to me, so I just have to make sure where I'm at is where I'm at. Sorry. Okay. I actually have to run and get my kids. Is that okay? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No, you can't.
Well, my boyfriend was like he's sick, and he was gonna take them, but here I am. Now I'm Ubering back to 505 to get my children. This has been a delight. Thank you guys so much. I'm so sorry to run. I wish I didn't have to do this. Okay.
Yeah, if we
Everyone
didn't
read this,
let
I'm going to.
If we didn't let you leave to go get your kids, this whole talk would be...
I think we would all get canceled.
I could tell them to come here, but then I'd be dealing with bags and things, and I don't want to do that. Okay, thank you guys.
Okay. So, does someone have an answer to his question? How do we get a non-entrepreneurial spouse on board?
I mean, my husband was on board immediately. Like, if anything, he was the one that encouraged me and pushes me. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I cried in his lap because I felt like I couldn't do this. And he's, again, is like, you're an idiot. You can do this. You remember when I told you before that you could do this? So he's actually my biggest cheerleader, my biggest support, encourager, and that is so important to have. I mean, yes, I have flexibility in my schedule, but there are times where I'm the one doing drop off or pickup on certain days, and he has the others. But something comes up, and it would be valuable for my business for me to go, and I got it. I'll go in late. I'll do it. And so, yes, when we're on vacation, if I take my laptop and I say, just real quick, I need to do this, or even last night, I need to send out 2 emails, and then I'm done. And, sometimes I'll get a little eye roll, but for the most part, I think he's just joking, and he is supportive. It's going to be tough because they don't get it either. And, I think it's playful banter with us, but there's points where he's like, well, I don't get to make my schedule. It's so much easier for you, and how great that you get to do this and do that. And so I think there's a little bit of healthy, fun jealousy in the work and the life that I get to create for myself versus what he comes home and I hate my job. So I think just having those conversations, communication is always key. Yeah.
Yeah, so communication is everything. I think at first for me, especially being the dad and the man of the house, I felt like I needed to protect my wife from the hard things that was going on the side of the business, because I didn't want her to be fearful that this thing that I went to go do isn't gonna happen. And starting a bank is not the easiest. That's a whole nother talk. That's why most people don't start banks. It was really, really, really hard. And so I think if you are communicating and being intentional about sharing the hard things and asking for what you need from a relationship and companionship standpoint, then they are brought along in that process. But in the initial days, I was trying to protect her from all the stuff. And then I'd get to this point where I was really stressed out, and she asks a simple need for me with the kids, and I'm like, I don't have anything to give. And she's, well, why didn't you tell me? And so I've had to learn along the way. You don't know what parenting, is this your first kid, do? Yes, like this is new. Neither one of you all have been here. And so communicate and give each other grace, and realize we are humans, and we're gonna stumble and we're gonna need each other. That's why we decided to be in partnership.
Yeah. My husband says always, when can I retire? Get your business to a point where I can retire. And I'm not going to sugarcoat what it's like having a new baby in the house. It is hard. And I've talked with friends that aren't entrepreneurs, and they have shared the very raw truth of, this was the hardest time in my marriage, where you're sleep deprived, but then you're also trying to build a business. And get that time together. If you need to talk to somebody, therapy helps, gives you the tools to where you realize that this person is not the enemy, and that you are teammates, and you are raising a family, and you are building a business. The divorce rate is high, but it's even higher for entrepreneurs. And that's not a bucket I want to be in.
Something that Sunny said earlier was things that people don't talk about. And one thing that people don't talk about, but psychologists have been researching for decades, is that a lot of researchers actually consider the birth of a child a major stress point on a relationship. But so often we're like, oh, it's a new baby, it's this brand new awesome thing. And it's like, no, it completely shifts everything. And you have to figure out, who are you as a dad? Your partner has to figure out who are they as a parent. And then you guys have to figure out, what is your relationship like with this little child who's trying to survive for that first year, that's completely helpless. And then it's like this whole family unit that you have to then try to figure out. And then you throw you trying to start a business into the mix, and that, like, you have to give yourself grace, lots of communication, having sit-down conversations about what does that look like, what is your image, what do you need from me, what do I need from you, having lots of those real tactical conversations.
We had a tool that really helped us, especially in those first couple of months, because I started to, again, have some resentment, where it was, well, why am I the one that has to get up in the middle of the night? Because I'm the only one that can feed her. And so it was me. But my husband wanted to help. He wanted to do what he could with what he could. And so we actually did something. I don't know, you've probably seen this image, a lot of you ladies probably have, where it's a woman is standing over the sink and she's washing the dishes, but she's thinking about how she's got to order diapers, we've got to get paper towels, we've got to make the doctor's appointment. This is why we're tired, because the mind doesn't stop. And so I had asked my husband, it was through female friendships that had given me the idea of, would you be offended if I got everything that was in my head that needed to get done and put it on a notepad on the fridge? And would this make you feel like this was like a honey to-do list? And he was like, no, absolutely not. Like, I would love that, because now I don't have to read your mind, and then you're not upset with me because of something I didn't do because you didn't tell me to do it. And because it was a silent expectation that I had, then I built up the resentment for something I never told him I wanted him to do. And so he would just at his leisure go in and check off, and he felt like he was contributing to the household. He was helping me out with the kid in the way that he could.
Yes, I recently created a post about this, about women, do you want help or do you want to be frustrated? Because that's the question that I asked. Because men see this. Women see everything. So women are like, why don't you see that the trash is overflowing and needs to be taken out? Because they don't see the trash can, they only see this. And so I tell women, if you want your husband to do something, ask them. And then chances are they'll actually do it, instead of bottling up this frustration and resentment and all of the things.
Husbands, just do it then. Like, don't do it later. Don't do it the next day. Do it right then.
And you have to be like, you all have to be so very clear in what you're asking. My wife, we're headed on vacation in a couple of weeks, and she asked if the rental we had rented has towels. And I'm like, I'm sure they do. And then, later on, she was like, well, did you ask the owner? And I'm like, no, I'm assuming that they have towels. And what she really wanted me to do was, through VRBO, put a message in the box and say, will you have beach towels? And I'm like, then why didn't you just... Sorry, now I'm venting. This is being recorded. But yeah, we don't get it. I'm like, it's a rental house. Sure, they have.
But she needed to know so that she could pack them if they didn't have them. Yeah.
And multiple. We don't get it.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We'll be around for a while if you guys have anything.